Gabi, looks like Rino Gattuso will be appointed Italy coach. Is it a good idea?
Okay, so wouldn't have been my choice, as you know. It looks like this is now going to be confirmed probably by the time we do the next show, but seems like everything is lined up. But he's very motivated. You can say that. He's not the caricature, the guy who screams. Although then again, I think he has to own his past. Not just the famous Ophi Crete when he was in Crete and he's like shouting Malacca and stuff like that. But afterwards, most recently at Hajduk, where he was up, he was down, it didn't quite work out. Other maybe than that stint at Napoli, I'm not even sure when he really produced for a big club. But this is a national team. This is different, right, Jules? It doesn't matter what he did in Marseille, does it?
It might suit him more. I'm a bit skeptical, I won't lie.
Yeah, anyway, it sounds like he's going to go 3 at the back, which he hasn't done before. And, the stuff that they've leaked, he's like, well, he's going to go with the, he's going to build around Donnarumma, Barella, and Bastoni, the big players, and he's going to promote kids. Yeah, okay. Every coach says that when they're appointed. I don't know. I'm skeptical, but I'm ready to be won over by Rino. Jules, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
Yes.
Florian Wirtz to Liverpool is finally done. Jules, the numbers say £100 million plus 16 million in bonuses. I'm going to guess that, this is Anglos. If you like it in euros, I'm guessing it's more like 110 plus 20 in bonuses. Supposedly, he was most impressed by Arne Slot's pitch.
Yeah, he did a good job, the Liverpool manager, which, again, I don't think is really surprising. So it's good to highlight it and to mention it, but he's very good like that, Arne Slot. It's very charming, very convincing, very good with words, very warm too. And I'm not surprised that Wirtz was really liked what he heard from him, the project, the plan, also joining a team that was by far the best in England this season, just to make it stronger and to make it better. There's a few things, obviously, that we will keep an eye on, and there will be one football for Mo Salah and Florian Wirtz, and you can't split it in two. So this is a team that was built for Mo Salah. Is he going to build for Salah and Wirtz? So let's see how Wirtz especially adapts to this team and to the environment and to Mo Salah, or how Mo Salah responds to it too on the pitch, how they find each other. All of that we can analyze later in the season. But for now, this is a very exciting. If you're a Liverpool fan, you must be very, very happy.
I was just a little bit, when he's talked about how he had like individual talks with company, with Pep, and with Arne Slot. Out of those three, Arne Slot wouldn't immediately jump out at me as the most magnetic, as the most charismatic. But like you said, he's also looking at the team as a whole. And we know that doubts over Pep's future, the charges, blah, 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 all the stuff would have played into it for City. And also the situation at Bayern. Liverpool right now just feel like a better run club.
Yeah. From a new Liverpool player to an old one, Gab, how impressed were you with Trent Alexander-Arnold's speech in Spanish when he was presented by Real Madrid?
I'm not impressed necessarily by what he said, because obviously it's all prepared. But
it's I like the fact that he read the text basically. But his accent was great.
The accent sounded fine to me, but he took the time to do this. I don't know. Are you cynical? Are you cynical about this, Jules?
No, I'm not cynical. It's just I just want to remind people he was reading an auto cue. This is not him, learning Spanish already and by heart being able to deliver that. But the accent was great. And some people in Liverpool have been saying that he'd been learning Spanish for 18 months. And that's why his accent was so good. Because again, the words you can read, if you read it, if you rehearse it, you can get to a good level. But still, the accent was very impressive. And that didn't come from in one day. So I think but we've said that before, right? That even at Liverpool, they felt that even when they started negotiating for his new extension, his new deal, they knew that there was no way they could have offered him anything. He was never going to sign. He was always going to go to Real Madrid. So he clearly planned it, prepared it, and that goes also with the language. But even if it was still reading an auto cue and a text.
All right. Meanwhile, as expected, Thomas Frank has been named as the new Tottenham boss. Jules, this is going to be interesting.
Very interesting, Gab. I mean, we're a big fan of Thomas Frank and what he built at Brentford in a very different structure to start with, an environment. because obviously he started in the Championship. I think he lost his first, his first 8 of 10 games or something like that. So he didn't start well at Brentford, but then he was given the time and built a very good team that was competitive to go up and then to stay in the Premier League comprehensively for the last few seasons. So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see who they sign. It's expensive for Spurs because they had to pay £10 million to Brentford to release Thomas Frank, plus the money that they've paid Ange Postecoglou and his staff as well. So that become a very expensive appointment. But they believe that he could do a really good job, and I agree. I think he's a very good coach, very good in his structure, in how he organizes the team and everything. So let's see. But I think it's quite promising from a Spurs point of view.
I'm just curious to see how he deals with. It's not that at Brentford he was dealing with a bunch of no names, but there were a lot of people who were signed at Brentford. Where they took a lot of care in establishing their character, who were more humble, who were going to use Brentford as a stepping stone. I think Spurs, you are playing at a higher level. You've got different types of players. Let's see how quickly he takes to them.
Yeah, and Frank was an expected choice at his old club, Brentford, and it looks like they may make an orthodox move to replace him as well now.
And unorthodox, just like Thomas Frank. He was a no-name when he became the Brentford coach. Hadn't even really been a number one for much of his career. Now, all of a sudden, according to the papers, it's being pitched as Scott Parker, who is the opposite of an unorthodox choice. Yeah. And I don't think will get the gig because he does not seem to align with Brentford, from what I can tell, unless Brentford tried to go in a totally different direction. And the other one is Keith Andrews. Now, this is a little bit unfair, because I looked at some of the headlines and they're presenting him like, oh, Keith Andrews, the set piece coach. He's not just a set piece coach, right? Yeah, he looked after set pieces, but he was Frank's assistant. This is also a guy, by the way, who's had a long career as a professional. He's not just some nerd set piece coach with a little clipboard and a bunch of data. He played 35 times or something like that for the Republic of Ireland. Obviously, a long career at Bolton, at Blackburn, and some other place up north as well. So I'm okay with it. All they're doing is going in-house for a solution. I'm not even going to bother asking you that you would take Andrews over Scott Parker, right?
I am. Let's say I'm not a Scott Parker fan.
Yeah, let's
just leave it there.
The USA may have looked poor in their Gold Cup warm-up friendlies, but they look sharp in thumping Trinidad 5-0, Jules.
Yeah, they did. They look really good. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago are ranked 100 in the FIFA ranking, so it's not like they beat a top 10 team. But you're right. After the last 2 games and a lot of criticism and a lot of controversy, they started on the front foot. They were very good from the start. Malik Tillman, Diego Luna, fantastic. In this young team that will face obviously tougher opponents, and actually they play Saudi Arabia in the next game. Yeah, you're right. You've heard properly. That's the Gold Cup by Saudi Arabia, who's been invited as a guest, and that would not be the same story you would think about than this game. But you just had to start well, and that's exactly what they did, and that will bring some momentum, some confidence, and probably push on the side a little bit the controversy that we've had so far. And this controversy, Gabby, comes with Christian Pulisic, and it won't go away because he said that he didn't understand why the US coach Mauricio Pochettino would not let him join the squad, the team, for the 2 friendlies that we had before the Gold Cup, but then not for the Gold Cup because he didn't want to play, he wanted to rest. So Poch fired back, obviously he did, saying that it's not his problem if Pulisic doesn't understand.
Yeah, I would say it is your problem because this is your best player. And he tried to, I'm going to put it this way. Pochettino missed a great opportunity to just keep his mouth shut on Pulisic. It doesn't matter. Pulisic isn't there. Go and win the Gold Cup with the players you have. And he's not the only one. Obviously, there's a lot of senior players aren't there. Go and show what you can do. And then people will come to their own conclusion that maybe you don't need Christian Pulisic. Now, going back to the beginning, this is so stupid. Christian Pulisic is worn out. He's played a ton of games in the last 2 years. He was injured for much of the season. He needed the time off at Milan, but instead he had to play often with painkillers because they needed him. He didn't want to play in the Gold Cup, right? So you make your decision, that's fine. But to then go and double down on this now with Pochettino saying, oh, he doesn't need to understand it, he just needs to follow orders. You guys keep saying Pulisic is the best player. He needs to perform, he needs to show it. I'm like, really? Pulisic needs to show he's the best player? Like, you made your choice. You wouldn't let him go in those 2 games. I think maybe even probably the right choice. So you could look at other people. But you don't need to rub it into him. This is not a fight that's worth picking right now, Poch. More Spurs. Matisse Tell's loan move has been made permanent, Jules. ESPN reports the deal is worth 40 million euros, including bonuses. I'm assuming this includes a 10 million down payment loan fee in January. Is this money well spent?
Well, I think time will tell, Gabby, because if you look at the stats and his performances during his loan from between January and May and the 3 goals that he scored, I think in 20 appearances in all competitions, doesn't look like that, I guess. Although I think there's potential. He's only 20, just turned 20 last month. Initially, the buyout clause was 60 million euros. They negotiated that down, which I think is good. 40 is probably more his valuation right now, so I've got no problem with it, but he just will have to show it, and again, show that he can perform and that he's worth it.
Yeah, I don't think I think they have other players. You have to really like him if you're going to do this, and I'm just wondering to what degree Thomas Frank was involved and to what degree this was all kind of decided earlier.
Yeah. It's not just Theo Hernandez. Liverpool's Andy Robertson now also linked with the Atletico Madrid left-back job, Gab.
I find this almost comical. They have more than enough left-sided players. Javi Galan, Samuelino, the Giuliano Simeone a little further forward. Now they're linked with these 2 guys. It seems to me like somebody's just throwing stuff at the wall because Theo Hernandez and Andy Robertson, completely different profiles of left-backs. What they have in common is they're both a year away from free agency. They're both big names. And in both cases, there's intermediaries trying to make a buck. Erik ten Hag reportedly thinks Justin Kluivert is the right guy to replace Florian Wirtz at Bayer Leverkusen. Does this make sense to you, Jules?
I really struggled, Gabby, to put Florian Wirtz and Justin Kluivert in the same sentence for the same position in the same, in the kind of same club. Is he a good player? Sure he is. Is he at the level of Florian Wirtz? Absolutely not. But then again, not many people are right now. And if you buy a Leverkusen, it's not about finding somebody who will be as good as Wirtz now coming in and playing into his position. I guess I get that. It would be to get somebody that at some point can get to a level as close as possible as what Florian Wirtz was for you. I'm just not convinced that Justin Kluivert is your guy. And also, because as we know, Bournemouth are very good at business. I think it would cost you quite a lot of money to go and sign Justin Kluivert. And I refuse to think that there are no other options than Justin Kluivert if you are Bayer Leverkusen right now to replace Wirtz.
Yeah, it's just a different profile to Florian Wirtz as well. Like, leaving aside, he's not as good and he's older and blah, blah, blah. But hey, at least Erik ten Hag is thinking.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Alejandro Garnacho keeps getting links with Napoli. Gab, is he that much of a Kevin De Bruyne fan?
Yeah, his dream is teaming up with Kevin De Bruyne. Now, okay, so I'm thinking strategically right now. This Garnacho thing has been going on, as you know, since January. I think if you're United, you're encouraging this because you want to flush out other potential buyers.
Yeah.
The fact that he's on a low salary, the fact that he's still very young, the fact that he has good numbers when he plays, despite all the haters and critics at Manchester United, suggests that United probably think that they can get, maybe they won't get 70 million, but maybe they'll get 60 million or 50 million. Napoli aren't going to go that high. So they're trying to flush out other potential buyers. That's what they're doing. What's all pretty obvious, though, is that his time at Old Trafford is up. Rosenborg wunderkind Sverre Nypan is on his way to Manchester City for £12.5 million. Jules, I say wunderkind. I've only seen a little bit of him on YouTube. And he's already older than Lamine Yamal. So how good could he possibly be?
Yeah, so are 95% of the professional players that we talk about, to be fair. So it's not just on him. He's clearly very talented, very precocious in his career in Scandinavia. Aston Villa and Arsenal were also pushing to sign him, really convinced by the potential. And if you're City, then he picked you to start with, ahead of Aston Villa and Arsenal and other clubs in the rest of Europe. So that's a good thing to start with. Then for that amount of money, for that transfer fee at 12.5 million, I know he's young, but I don't think you're taking many risks either. There will always be a market for him, even if it's a loan first if you don't think he can cut it with you for now. And there's obviously a lot of competition in his position already at the club. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was going out on loan first for a season and something like what we saw with Perrone, for example, like Como this season and things like that. And then if he becomes good enough to play for City under Guardiola or under somebody else, then good. If it's not, you know that the value will still be there anyway. So I think that's a really good deal from a City point of view.
Villarreal Cierno Berry, who is most definitely not Paris-born and bred,
He's from Lyon,
but is a France under-21 international, is reportedly a 40 million euro target for Everton. Jules, reasonable price?
It's hard to tell. Sometimes I watch him and I think yes, he's worth that. He's very good. Clearly, there's big potential. It's quite a great story because it's not the usual path. And I know we say that often with some players. You know, your usual Thierry Henry or Kylian Mbappe kind of pathway. He had to go to Switzerland. Did really well in Switzerland. That's where Villarreal, who as we know are very good at scouting, scouted him. He comes to La Liga and not really was never going to start the season, but yeah, has a very positive season. I think scored 11 goals in La Liga. Really good. He's strong, he's quick, he's good technically, he's decent in front of goals. There's still a lot for him to learn and improve, as we saw with the France under-21 team that he rescued massively on Saturday night against Georgia at the under-21 Euros, scoring the winning goal. But before that, he scored another goal where he was offside and could clearly have avoided to be offside. So there's still work to do, but he's a very interesting player, that's for sure. And 40 million euros, yes, is a lot of money for a young player, but I think you also see the potential. And if you don't get him now, soon, I don't think he would be gettable for a team like Everton. So it might not be a bad thing to bring him now, to be fair.
And he's a big dude,
yeah,
too.
Yeah, he's strong, really strong. And from Lyon are producing, not that he went the Cherki or Lacazette or Benzema way, but still, like, you know, it's not just Paris born and bred. Lyon born and bred are pretty good lately. More good news for Jim Ratcliffe, Gab. Is it good news? Tottenham are suing INEOS, so his company, after he rescinded a sponsorship deal that Spurs had with INEOS Grenadier SUV, the cars. One day I was going to Spurs Arsenal, the derby, and I was in my car because I don't live too far from the Spurs stadium. I was driving in, and who was behind me at the lights? James Maddison in his INEOS Grenadier.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Because literally, I think he's probably the only person I've ever heard of who owns or drives around in an INEOS Grenadier or Grenadier, if you prefer the alternate spelling, which is probably what Jim Ratcliffe calls it. INEOS make chemicals, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
And they have a racing team.
Also,
petrochemicals?
Yeah.
What are they doing with cars? I never understood that. I never understood the sponsorship with Spurs. In the end, whether they're allowed to end it early or not, that's a matter for the lawyers, what's written in the contract. Certainly, Ratcliffe's camp say, oh, no, we were allowed to end it early. And of course, if Spurs find lawyers who say, yeah, you can go ahead and sue them for ending it early, then we know Spurs are going to do that. But this whole thing to me seems so bizarre, and it seems so bizarre that, you're running one football club, but you're sponsoring another one. It's a good thing it's over. But yeah, I would love to hear if anybody out there has actually bought one.
They look like the Mercedes G-Wagon, So I don't know if you've seen one, but yeah, they're similar like that. They're like army vehicles kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds very cool. Just like Ratcliffe and Brailsford. Gio van Bronckhorst is on his way to replace Johnny Heitinga in Arne Slot's staff at Liverpool. Jules, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised, no. Obviously, two ex-Feyenoord manager, both with great success. Van Bronckhorst actually started, in a way, the cycle for then that Slot then took over in 2019, I think, and Van Bronckhorst won a title. He won a Dutch Cup as well and a couple of Super Cups, I think. Did well. After that, it got more complicated for him, whether it was in China, in Scotland, or even in Turkey, where I think he just lasted 6 months or 4 months. So hasn't always been that great for him as a number one. And maybe he feels, you know what, number two is probably what I enjoy. I want to work with Arne Slot. They know each other quite well. You are joining again a team very much on the up where you can still learning. He's still young enough to then go from that to a number one position like Johnny Heitinga has done with Ajax. So I don't think he's bad at all. And if your slot is another one of your compatriots that somebody that you can trust with great knowledge, having been a great player, of course. So I think it'll make sense for everyone involved in this.